Carl Ritchie has over 30 years of experience in public safety across the Lowcountry. Now he wants to become the next Charleston County Sheriff. I talked one-on-one with Chief Ritchie for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, sponsored by the Pepper Law Firm. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Carl Ritchie, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups, sponsored by the Pepper Law Firm.
Thank you so much. Honored to be here, and I always enjoy speaking with you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Needless to say, you are a resident of Mount Pleasant. You are a Mount Pleasant Town Council member. And of course, we all know that you have 33 years of law enforcement experience in this particular community. As you say on your website, a trusted public safety leader that people need here in the Lowcountry as the next Charleston County Sheriff. So let me ask you this, Chief. Putting this Charleston County Sheriff's Office to the side, what is the state of public safety?
In general, or within the county?
Yes, sir.
You know, I think the municipalities are doing a great job. They're doing the best they can with staffing, and with most of them, at least here in the Lowcountry, I can speak of. You know, they implement community policing and do a great job. That's why I'm running for Charleston County Sheriff, though, because I think we're missing that in these unincorporated areas. We got to get more deputies out there, more service to the folks who live outside of these incorporated municipalities. I've spoken with business owners just as recently as yesterday who've complained that it takes up to an hour sometimes just to get a response. You know, and that's just not acceptable. We're supposed to be serving and protecting, and that's what I plan to do.
Yes, sir. And as you know, I like to break down a lot of things and ask a lot of follow-up questions. So please bear with me. But let me ask you, in those unincorporated areas, well, let me ask you a better way, Chief. What exactly are those crimes that are happening in these unincorporated areas of Charleston County?
Sure. Well, the same exact crimes that are happening in the incorporated areas. The car break-ins, the thefts, those type of incidents that are going on. Some of the violent crime that's going on, and a lot of that can be prevented with some proactive, good community policing with our deputies to get out there and know the community, know the folks that live there, and to understand what's out of place instead of being reactive. Need to be proactive and be in those communities and be a part of the solution and take ownership.
In those incorporated areas, Chief, how many deputies are actually needed right now?
You know, that I don't know the exact number. Again, I know staffing's down. I know that's something I have to deal with. I have to work with when I get in. What I plan on doing is looking at all these areas, pulling the data, looking at the types of incidents that are being reported, and looking at the response time. That'll help me decide the exact number of deputies that we need in each of these different areas, because they may vary depending on the size of the area, depending on the number of calls for service. There's a lot that's going to play into that. And once I can look at that data, sit down with staff, then we can identify exactly what kind of team we need, what type of supervision we need in those respective areas to give the right kind of public safety coverage.
Well, let me ask you this then, Chief. In what way do you actually enhance public safety, reduce the fear and actually an impact of crime, and actually improve quality of life in Charleston County?
I just said it. I mean, quite frankly, the making sure that these deputies are in these areas that are underserved, these unincorporated areas. Again, our North Charleston, our Mount Pleasant, these incorporated areas do a fantastic job responding to calls, dealing with their residents. Their residents know them. They know who they are. That's the kind of force that I like to see in these other areas, is where they can know their deputies. They know who's going to be responding to their call. They know who's going to be patrolling their streets. When you're assigned to these areas, you take that sense of ownership. I mean, there's that buy-in you have with your neighbors, and just seeing that crews are coming through some of these rural roads. You know, it's good for them to see, okay, my deputy's out here. I'm being protected. Our areas, our neighbors are being patrolled. It feels good to see them out here. And of course, as Sheriff's Office, we're going to continue supporting these municipalities, because a lot of times we have some of the specialized equipment and units these other municipalities, especially the smaller ones, may need, and we'll all work collaboratively. You know, we've done that in the past. We're all for the larger agencies. We've done a great job training, working together to help reduce crime countywide. And I'm gonna tell you, I've established relationships over the years, and you know that, where both with all folks, all walks of life, I have had strong relationships, and that's a big key to having your community feel safe and feel like they have the right people looking out for them. Because I'll be accessible, be transparent, and I'll be available to make sure their needs are heard and answered, no matter who you are.
What exactly are the needs right now for the citizens of Charleston County when it comes to public safety?
Presence. I feel that proactive presence. I can't say it enough. You've got to be out in these areas, in these districts, patrolling, meeting people, and given that sense of security. That's what they're looking for. They want to be safe in their homes, be able to respond to those calls, and be able to hopefully do a lot of crime prevention just by being in that area, stopping some crime and lowering it.
And I know I'm being redundant, Chief, but let me ask you this. Well, before I get to that, but
It's
let me
okay.
ask you this. What exact outside of the unincorporated parts of Charleston County, what exactly are the response times in the actual areas of Charleston County right now?
Well, again, I need to pull the data, and I'm
Okay.
only giving you an anecdotal information
Sure.
with all the citizens that I've actually visited. I
Right.
visited as far as Edisto,
Yes.
Wamlaw, Rockville, back to McClellanville, Allendale. I've been to
Yes.
all these different areas, talking to folks, talking to store owners, and it's clear they're saying it can take 45 minutes to an hour to even get a deputy there, depending where they're responding from. And that has a lot to do with staffing. That's where you got to be sure you look at the data, look at response times, look at the calls for service, and ensure you have the proper coverage in those areas.
Now, let me ask you this, and I should have asked you this earlier, but I think you touched on it a little bit. But what are the four pillars of the 21st century policing in your mind?
In my mind, it's going to be obviously community policing. You've got to know your community. You have to be trusted by your community. You have to be in your community to get to know them. Um, Unbiased and equitable enforcement of the law has to be one of them. You have to be able to actually enforce the law equally with everybody. We're not going to allow lawlessness, but we're certainly not going to, unfairly enforce the law. My goodness, the third in my mind would have to be again, the partnership. I just can't keep saying that enough. The partnership with our community, because how am I going to know what your concerns are in your community unless I've talked to you? And I've come to find that's often that we as a law enforcement agency may think we know the problem until we get to talk to the folks and realize it's something completely different that's affecting their quality of life. And then we, as a public safety department, can address the ones that we can, but we also have access to the other departments within the county or within the municipalities that can address quality of life. And I've had that experience where I'm thinking it's a crime issue that's going on, and there is crime going on in these areas. Next thing I hear is like, we really have a drainage problem. Well, I can't do anything about that, but I know who can. So I think that's important to have. And just relationships. You've got to have relationships. If you're trying to develop a relationship during a crisis, you've already failed. This nation's had issues. We've dealt with the pandemic. We've dealt with civil unrest. And without having those solid relationships already developed with all walks of life in our community, I think we'd have had much bigger problems where we were able to sit down at a table and talk, work it out, and figure it out together. So that's got to be the best way I can answer that question for you.
What do you want to bring to the table right now, Chief?
Stability, quite frankly, stability. You have 17 deaths in the jail. That's indisputable. There is a serious problem with folks that are incarcerated right now. Once they're in there, they belong to Charleston County. They belong to the sheriff's office. It's our responsibility to keep them safe and not allow them to be one of the 17 that have died. And one of the first things I want to do, and I've had discussion with many folks about this and a way we could deal with it, almost an immediate impact, is having at least some trained EMTs on site 24/7. I know there's a medical contract. I need to review that. I understand they have a person there, but a lot of times 2, 3 in the morning, if one of our jail professionals is doing their rounds and they find one of our incarcerated people or inmates in there that are having a medical emergency, all they have is basic first aid right now. They have to call for help. I want to be able to have that, just like our EMS folks that can respond, our trained EMTs that can respond immediately, stabilize those folks so we can get them to the hospital for the care they need. Because right now we're missing that piece right in the middle. There's 17's too many, one's too many. We have to do our part to reduce those that actually end that problem.
And I'm scheduled to actually interview Charleston County Sheriff Chris Graziano this coming Monday, October 7th, here on Quintin
Sure.
Substance. So I hope to get her side of the story on that. But first and foremost, let me ask you this, Chief. How exactly would you review that medical contract that the county has right now?
Well, of course, I would sit down with obviously some medical professionals from the area. I'd want folks who understand what is needed, what is the best practices within that contract, and sit down with those who could understand what is needed in that jail, and that could be some of our partners in the community, some of our Charleston County EMS folks. There are professionals out there that can look at that contract and say, this is what you're missing, this is what you need, this is what best practices should be, and I think we owe that to the inmates. We absolutely owe it to them.
Now, how many of these inmates are currently in the Charleston County Detention Center?
Again, without having the numbers in front of me, I don't know the exact number. I certainly can find that, but I don't know exactly how many are in there right now.
Let me ask you this then. If you do get elected and you obviously look at that medical contract and you make some changes, how many more trained EMTs do you want to have in that particular detention center?
Well, as far as the EMTs right now, I want to be able to staff it with at least having a minimum of 2 on duty, 24/7.
Okay.
Minimum, because there's breaks, there's people get sick,
Right.
things happen.
Sure.
But I want them physically there, and my goal would be obviously once we get staffing up and we can get more of jail professionals hired and staffed, I would love to identify some of those who are interested in maybe becoming EMTs. We can pay them more, get them the training, so we're able to get more than just the EMT work out of them. They can be handling the day-to-day operations, but be able to immediately spring into action if we have a medical emergency.
Is that really a problem right now? Is it the pay that's actually the problem, besides obviously the unfortunate deaths at the Charleston County Detention Center?
Now, say you're asking me again. What did you ask me about the problem? Say it again, sir.
I'm so sorry. Sorry
Okay.
about the background noise and outside noise here. But let me ask you, besides obviously the unfortunate deaths at the Charleston County Detention Center, is actual pay an issue there too?
Pay is always a concern in public safety. Everybody thinks they need to make more money, and of course, I want to review that.
Okay.
But right now, I think it's the conditions, the direction and leadership that's needed in that jail, and that's something that I know I can bring. I've had the opportunity to talk to several current and former jail administrators who successfully managed and run jails, and they give me some great insight and things I think that we'll be able to do as soon as we begin to make sure we have the right folks in the right place to ensure the safety of everybody, not only the inmates, but we have to ensure the safety of our staff as well.
How would you review that safety manual?
Say again?
Yes, sir. How would you adjust that safety manual once you look at that medical contract and hire more people for the detention center?
Again, I'm going to work with those subject matter experts that could sit down with me who've managed jails in the past or manage them currently, and we can look at best practices. And I know there's national associations out there that can give guidance, just like with our accreditation in CALEA, where you have the standards that I'm very familiar with, where we have standards that we can review to make sure that these standards are being upheld and that they're in place and they're being used the way they're supposed to be.
Now,
It's going to take more than just me. I know that.
Yes,
It's going to take
sir.
several subject matter experts to sit down, but I'm committed to stopping these deaths in the jail, making it safe, and making it safe for our staff as well.
Now, Chief, you mentioned something very interesting to me. You talked about conditions. What are the current conditions right now for the staff and the inmates at the Charleston County Detention Center?
Again, I only have anecdotal.
Right.
My understanding is
Sure.
just from folks who talk to me who work there and have worked there. Staffing's low, they're overworked, and when you're not when inmates don't have um, the resources they need, especially when we deal with medical issues, it's a concern. Mental health conditions are a concern. Obviously, when a lot of time when you first get incarcerated, we may identify mental health issues, and those have to be addressed on a daily basis and handled. And you also have to have a way that when they're released, is we can have that soft handoff so they can continue getting the services they need once they've been identified in the jail, so we don't have them returning. There's a lot we can do with public-private partnerships to ensure conditions are better, safety's better, and we're providing the right kind of services so we don't have you come back to our jail.
Now, Chief, let me ask you this, Dan. I don't have any privy to what's going on inside a detention center myself,
Right.
but let me ask you: do they actually does the county actually have a mental health specialist there full time?
I know. I don't know. They need one if they don't.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's full time or it's just somebody comes in, they have appointments. Obviously, the current sheriff should know that. And that's something I will know and I will look into when we're reviewing contracts. But that's going to be a priority. You have to have that mental health component, not only for the inmates but for your staff as well. They're dealing with a lot in those 12-hour shifts, and having to on day to day, you have to be able to give them the opportunity also to be able to talk about what they've seen, what they've done, what they've experienced. So I think it's an important component to have.
Now, I'm probably going down the Charleston County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council lane here, but do you believe that most of these people who are jailed in the detention center right now are are there that shouldn't be there, but they're there because of mental health issues and other crimes?
Sure. I think that can be. Not for me, the CCA, the criminal justice, CJCC, sorry, Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and it was up and running when I was chief. And the idea was obviously to keep our violent criminals in jail. We do not want them on the street. But if we identify those with mental health issues, substance abuse issues, and that's why they're getting incarcerated. If we have an alternative, we need to be able to do that. And do I think there's some in there? Yeah, there probably are, and I'm sure there's some waiting trial for whatever reasons that have their mental health issues or substance abuse issues that could be being exasperated just for being in that kind of situation. So, folks break the law, you got to go to jail. But completely agree with that. But we have to look at some of the underlying facts. And I said, if there is a way to reduce the number of inmates in the jail, so we're making sure the violent criminals are kept where they need to be, where we can still adjudicate cases and provide the proper mental health and substance abuse care, even after they're released, we have to do that. And that's going to create a better environment for everybody, the jail staff, the inmates. It's going to be better for everyone.
Let me ask you a simplistic question. What exactly are your alternatives right now?
To
Yes, reducing that population in the jail.
It's been a while since I've worked with the the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. It's been a while, and I know they're struggling because it's hard to find beds. It's hard to find services for everybody. So that's actually a challenge, and I think that's the biggest part of the problem is making sure funding for these resources is out there. So when someone is identified with an issue or identified with some kind of a problem, we can provide that assistance they need. And that's something I'm willing to work with both our public and private partners to ensure we do have a place they can go, where they do have a place they can continue getting services. We have a gap that needs to be filled.
What other gaps need to be filled when it comes to the detention center, Chief?
I think I've covered them. I do. I think I've covered them. We talked about staffing, talked about medical, especially emergency medical.
Yes, sir.
I understand it's a medical contract. I'm talking about emergency medical response. Somebody that goes into immediate medical crisis has to be addressed. We have to address when an inmate's released, how are we going to be able to continue having that aftercare so we don't see them again? So I think I've covered that, and I'm committed to making sure that happens at the Charleston County Jail.
Now, obviously, those people who are in jail, obviously, as you just mentioned, committed crimes here in the Low Country.
Sure.
So, when it comes to crimes here in Charleston County, what were the top 10 crimes in 2023?
Top 10, that's gonna be hard for me to answer. I don't have the crime report in front of me, but if you saw the SLED report that just came out, Charleston County was named the most dangerous county in South Carolina with 70 homicides. And then, of course, our aggravated assaults, sexual assaults were all listed as well. And that's on the SLED website. So that's very concerning. I don't need to get into 10 things. I'm concerned about those top 3 things right there alone. And I think there's relationships that the sheriff should have with the other municipalities to work together. You can't say that, oh, yeah, we have 70 murders, but they happen in North Charleston, or they happen in Charleston City or Mount Pleasant. Maybe a few only happen in the county. That 1,300 square mile border of Charleston County, that's what I'm concerned about. That's everybody. They're all my constituents. That's part of this relationship with these police chiefs. So I, as a sheriff, can offer the assistance that we all work together, because it impacts impacts our entire county. These homicides, because your victim could have lived in a different community, or suspect can come from a different community. It impacts all of us, so we have to work together to get those numbers down, those are priorities.
Who else do you, when it comes obviously homicides, which is one of the big top crimes right now in Charleston County? Who do you want to bring to the table to reduce this problem?
Sure, I want to bring everybody to the table. I want to bring all of our local, our state, our federal partners, even our community partners. We got folks, the activists that are out there in the neighborhoods that know what's going on. I want to bring everybody to the table. This is a community problem, a county problem. This is not a sheriff's office problem alone, not a Mount Pleasant, not a city, not a North Charleston problem alone. It's our problem. So I would bring anybody to the table that could come work with us, so we can work with them, so we can reduce these homicides, because and all the other violent crime has to be reduced. But no one entity can do it by itself. We have to do it together. Relationships and partnerships are key to getting this done.
Now, let me ask you this. You mentioned those municipalities, Charleston City, North Charleston, of course, Mount Pleasant. You have Allendale, Pellerville, Edisto, Johns Island, whatnot. Where exactly are these crimes happening the most in Charleston County?
They're happening all over. The entire county is being impacted. You can't. I don't want to say one municipality has more than another. I don't have their crime reports in front of me. I just have the SLED report that talked about the ones that state as a whole. So I think we all have that impact. I know Mount Pleasant obviously be a little bit lower than most of them. North Charleston City, we all have our challenges, but we all care about our communities, and I think we can all work together. We worked together when I was chief. It didn't matter what municipality you were. All this crime impacted us, and we worked together, and that's exactly what I'm going to do as sheriff, work with everybody. It's not who's got the most. To me, it's a county-wide problem. That's why I talked about it being a community problem, not pointing a finger at one municipality or other. We all need to deal with this.
Now, going back obviously to what we talked about earlier, as far as bringing in personnel to help change things inside the Charleston County Detention Center, how would you actually improve, if you will, the career ladder so that you can actually compete with those surrounding agencies and the private industry?
Well, of course. I mean, you've got to do your wage and compensation studies, and I would review what the county's already done. I know they offered more, or gave some more money not too long ago, to increase pay. Obviously, given a good work environment is important. Having that proper leadership and supervision is important. So obviously, I think my reputation would help some of that staffing come back. I've heard from many who left that are wanting to come back and wanting to go work for the county. They'll come back and work for the county that they work for. So obviously, I would do that. I'd work very hard with HR, the onboarding process. I think that can be part of the reason we don't get folks in quick enough. You have to do your due diligence. You have to do background checks. But I've heard from many folks who've applied different places and talked to different chiefs and sheriffs. When it comes down to somebody applying, you give them a call for a conditional offer, and 10 days later, you finally call them in for onboarding process. They've already got a job somewhere else. So I want to make sure I'm working with county's HR department, make sure that we have an internal HR department, a good recruitment department that can not only get out and tell them what's so good about working with the sheriff's office, but providing them with a a more streamlined onboarding process so they know they have a job and not sitting around waiting. There's going to be a lot of work to do, and I'm prepared to do that work.
When it comes to that, Chief, though, what exactly should be streamlined to get that to an acceptable level?
Well, all of it. Quite frankly, when you get hired, you should already, or when you get the initial offer, you should already have the doctors lined up for the physical. You should already have folks lined up for the polygraph. You should have a staff who's working on that, even if it's you have the county HR, but if you have your own HR department as well to work together. So because the county's big, they got a lot of employees that are having to go through a process. If I have an individual working with that process and within that process, then they can help identify how many number that we can hire at one time. So we have X number of people coming through, and we have a full day of you're going to get your polygraph, you're going to have your physical, not okay, your physical's today, your polygraph's next week. Where other agencies are maybe working a little bit harder to ensure that streamline, but can't cut corners. We only want quality. We're not looking at quantity here. We're looking at the best of the best to come in and work in the sheriff's office. And that's my commitment, is making sure we're recruiting and we're hiring the best. And that's another place where our community can help us. It's your community. Help us recruit good people to be your deputies in your areas. And then don't, instead of complaining about it, help us, work with us.
But let me ask you this. This might be a silly question, Chief, but is the problem right now inside the Charleston County Sheriff's Office all about quality, or is it quantity?
I don't quite understand your question.
When it comes to hiring, is quantity a problem, or is it quality?
Well, and I don't think it's really either. When the quality is out there, and of course, obviously, the quantity. If I have to even answer that question, the quantity is the number of openings right now. So folks are not applying, and the ones that are, I don't know them, but the ones that are, they're going through a process. If we're hiring one, when I'm still hearing 3 or 4 are leaving, going to other agencies, that's a problem. We have an issue with folks leaving the sheriff's office.
Wow.
We have to determine what that is, and hopefully they're getting exit interviews. Review those exit interviews, find out why folks are leaving, and address that issue. It has to be addressed.
Well, that goes back to my previous question. Is it quantity or quality? Is that really why they're leaving?
The reason they're leaving, I think they're leaving because the ones who aren't staying are concerned about the quality of leadership, and that's my opinion.
Okay.
That is my opinion, and,
Yes, sir.
and
Yes,
that's
sir.
why I'm running for sheriff, because I think there's a lack of leadership that needs to be addressed. If I didn't think that, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I'm running for sheriff. I am that leader that can make a positive, immediate impact on the sheriff's office and in Charleston County.
How many of those Charleston County deputies, Chief, have actually left to go to other agencies?
Sir, I don't have that number, but I'd have to get that from HR. But I can tell you what I hear.
Yes, sir.
I hear many have left or retired early, and I've also heard from many who said, we want to come back. We're watching what's going on with this election. And that speaks volumes to me. Again, that's anecdotal. That's
Right.
what I'm hearing
Yes,
from
sir.
the streets.
Yes, sir.
That's me not being able to put my hands on
Right.
what's actually, the actual number of deputies that have left. But I can tell you
Yes, sir.
that will be that'll be a priority. My first priority is making sure we don't have any more deaths in that jail. That's got to stop. We have to ensure that. And to do that, hand in hand is going to have to be the staffing. And I'm going to immediately find out why they're leaving, what it's going to take to get them back, and then really work on a robust recruitment team that's targeting the right areas to actually to find the right applicant pool to come in, and then we're working with our onboarding process to ensure once we've identified somebody that's ready to go to work, we can get them on and get them working immediately and get them trained up.
Okay. In what way would you establish a cost-effective, fair, and transparent hiring to rehiring personnel process?
Well, I think first of all, you'd have to have a good cross section of your agency. For a hiring board, I'm looking at folks as, the deputies, the line level deputy, our mid level supervisors, and our command staff, because they've been there. They know what to look for. They know what's going to make a good quality candidate, and and I want them out there being ambassadors and doing the recruitment for me too, and getting folks in and helping us get our staffing back up. And that's how that process will work. It would be very transparent with whomever wants to apply. We would give them a good solid timeline on onboarding and let them know what it's going to take up front to get hired, and hopefully have a good process, at least a screening process to identify things that may exclude you from being hired. So we can let that person know, so we can move on to the next that we know could be a quality candidate.
Well, that brings me to my next question. What leadership course, Chief, would you actually equip your supervisors to have based on the challenges that the sheriff's office is actually facing right now?
Sure, that there are so many quality leadership courses out there. LEADA is one of them. That's law enforcement. Forgive me, I've been a while. I can't remember the acronym, but I know LEADA is going on right now here at Mount Pleasant, where officers and deputies from all over the area are currently right now in this training. There's several levels of it. A good in-house training can be important. I know there are quality deputies in training and supervisors right now who already have great supervisory skills that can put together that peer-to-peer mentoring and training. That can happen. For the upper level folks, we have the FBI Academy, we have the Southern Police Institute, they have the Senior Management Policing. There are so many opportunities out there, so many online opportunities out there as well, where you can get that leadership training. There are folks that will come in. So I can't give you one. There are many ways that we can provide this leadership training to the staff and ensure that they're the highest quality and getting the support and training they need.
And I got probably a few minutes left, but let me ask you, how would you actually add, say, for instance, squad level leadership opportunities after a successful completion of training?
You said, how would I? I'm sorry, say again, sir.
Yeah, how exactly would you add squad level leadership opportunities after successful completion of training?
Sure. I mean, at what squad level, what I think of that is
Yes,
our
sir.
road sergeant, the one who's in my mind out there, really hands on 24/7 with their teams, guiding and directing. But I'd want a strong succession plan. I'd want that sergeant teaching the deputies below them how to lead. I'd want the lieutenants above the sergeants teaching them how to take that next step to be a lieutenant, and so forth. I, as a sheriff, should be training the next potential sheriff. I should be supporting them, encouraging them, and empowering them to do what they need to be as successful as they can when my time is to step down again. And again, I'm not in any hurry to do that, but the whole idea is to have that strong succession planning and provide the opportunities to those that are interested. And it can be done.
So that brings me to my next question. How would you actually ensure continuing executive level training for those lieutenants and above, moving it down to sergeants, obviously as possibilities arise?
I'm going to make it a priority. It's going to be an absolute important priority. I'm going to make sure the annual budget covers some of these larger classes, because they can get expensive sometime, and be sure we identify those that are in the supervisor or leadership roles that we know have shown the ability to not only lead, but want to continue leading, and give them the support of the larger schools, but also be able to bring in all that other training that's offered from outside agencies, from the academy, and to continue providing them that training they need. Training will be an absolute priority, because failure to train, failure to supervise is some of the biggest issues we have when it comes to liability.
How would you actually streamline the budget to make sure that those things are accomplished?
So I go through every line. You got to go through every line of that budget,
Right,
and account for it and justify it. What's it being used for? Why is it being used? Is it being used effectively? And by making training a priority, that's going to, we'd look at that line item. We can forecast out how much schools are, where they are, the housing, and I can have an idea of what it's going to cost. So not in the middle of the year, I'm like, oh, the school came up. This is where I want to go. I'm already going to have a plan. I'm already going to have a cost analysis. I'm already going to be able to account for that and take that to council whenever I'm presenting my budget.
How do you grow the Charleston County Sheriff's Department as Charleston County grows?
Well, I mean, obviously, I go back to data driven, and I'm very big into that. Just like when Mount Pleasant grew.
Mm.
You know, when I started here, it's 30 of us, and Sneed Farm as far as you went. So, you know, as the county's growing, and obviously the borders can't grow, but you can certainly grow by population, by the number of houses built. And when that's going on, we should be able to look at that impact study that should come in place when you're having these developments come in, and they're seeing it in unincorporated areas. Have that data, look at the calls for services, look at how long it takes to get a deputy to respond to a call. That should be able to compare to your current level of staffing. And if you find out I need one or two more deputies to keep up with the growth, that's exactly what I need to go to council for. So I need to add these number of deputies to ensure we can have proper coverage throughout the entire county as we grow.
Mount Pleasant Town Councilman and former Mount Pleasant Police Chief Paul Ritchie, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close Up, sponsored by the Pepper Law Firm.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure.
Likewise.